No, okay, so the final session for today is about technology, or how was it? Technology-led heritage. So we want to discuss today the connections between heritage and technology. We want to ask the question whether it is at all possible to be able to have a discussion about heritage without mentioning technology and all the elements and challenges, but also opportunities that it brings into the picture. And we'll do so in a lovely company of these two gentlemen. And I'll try to briefly introduce them to you, but briefly is impossible because they come up with a lovely package of experience. So I need help. Okay, we'll start with Daniel. And I'll stick to first names, if it's okay with you, both. So Daniel works at the Fundación Santa María de la Real del Patrimonio Histórico. And he's an architect, so based in Spain, a project manager and a collaborator in developing prediction tool through deep learning of a set of building, implementing a software tool based on data mining. And Daniel is here to talk about a very specific project. It's called Smart Heritage City Project, and that the project is the winner of a special Ilucidare, and I hope this rings a bell, Ilucidare special prize at the Europa Nostra Awards that you're all acquainted with. And then there is Johan. Johan is head of research at head of research and heritage services at the National Institute for Sound and Vision, so the Netherlands. And I think I mixed the name, but it's okay. And he's a researcher at the University in Amsterdam. So his main scope currently is about access to digital heritage. And this is, I think, your main area of research currently. So it focuses on the relationships between participatory culture and institutional policy. And Johan is also among many hats that he's wearing a co-chair of the Netherlands Heritage Network. But before we give the floor to Johan first and then Daniel, I wanted to give the floor to you. So I wanted to understand how you see those links between technology and heritage. How do you see the connection, if you at all see it? So as you remember, we have this lovely tool that we can use that actually has been developed by a colleague of Johan and mine and another Dutch company. So you know what to do. Join quander.eu with the code 1202. Ready? Yeah, we'll work with what we have. So if possible, join and... So we have... It seems to be working. We have 12, 13... Okay, almost everyone is in. Do you still need more time? Okay, let's do it then. So, sorry. I somehow can't go to the next slide. That is, okay. No. This is bizarre. Apologies for that. No, this is good. The session is working. Sorry, I'm gonna take my time here. This is it. Should be working. Oh no. Okay, then we will we won't start with you. Apologies for that, really. It worked before, and we will finish with that. But then just not to take too long, and I still want to hear from you. But just to set the scene, I would then immediately go the floor to Johan, who will talk about his experience in making or creating room or using technology in your work, in the archive, on so many different levels. And so, yeah, without further ado, I would say the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will. Let's switch to the slides. First off, thanks organizers for inviting me. It's my first trip abroad since 13 months, so I feel very lost. So if you will see me wandering around, then just, you know, get back. And also, I just also congratulations for being in Poland and share your experience. I know how much fun it is to meet with people from different countries. I also do some training for UNESCO, and so one hand, it's very nice to learn new things, and also I at least see all the sticky notes, so you're doing a wonderful job. But also just getting to know people from other countries is just the best thing ever. I know that many more people signed up for this course, and you are the sort of the special chosen ones that could make it. So congratulations. So yeah, my name is Johan Oomen. I work at Sound and Vision. This is a little piece of where I work. Let's see if this works. If technology. Let's see. Yes. Oh. Yes. So this is. Also my office. Sound and Vision is an audiovisual archive and media museum in the Netherlands. But I think before I will start and explain a little bit about why I'm here today and show you a little bit about the work that we do, I think it's also nice to tell a little bit about myself. I have the sense that, you know, maybe over the past couple of days you've got to know each other a little bit. I have to catch up. I will be in the wine reception tonight, and I will be here also listening to the pitches tomorrow. So I have to catch up. So if you want to know who I am, so this is my my Instagram account. With some words, I'm an aspiring rogue archivist. So I like to tinker with archives. I like flea markets a lot. I like to dance to indie music, but I think I forgot how to dance because I haven't danced in ages. I suffer from wanderlust, so being able to go abroad is really exciting. I like craft beer, and I live in Amsterdam. And in Amsterdam, you can go to the cinema with a pass. It's called Cineville, so I live also a little bit in Cineville. And these are some pictures, and these are some of the museums that I go to. So that's me, and let's go on with Sound and Vision. So Sound and Vision, like I told you, it's a media museum. We have two museums at the moment. One in Hilversum. It's the you can say the headquarters, and a smaller museum in The Hague. This is the museum in The Hague. And so in our museum in Hilversum, we show the history of media of the Netherlands, but we also show how media is evolving over the past couple of decades. And these are quite well-visited museums. You know, we mainly cater for general audience, so it's like families with children. That's basically for Hilversum, our user group, and in The Hague, it's more targeted towards journalists. So it's more professional facing museum. Then our second big role, we are the Audiovisual Archive of the Netherlands, meaning that all the material from the Dutch public broadcasters is archived by Sound and Vision. So there's no separate archive for different broadcasters. It's one archive that all the broadcasters use. But you can imagine that also, if we want to tell the story in a museum about media in the Netherlands, then obviously we also have to collect archives from the commercial broadcasters, and from filmmakers and websites and so on. So it's a very broad mandate. In order to look after all that material, we are using technology. I think that's part of the reason why María invited me to give a talk. So ranging from artificial intelligence in all kinds of different shapes and forms. And thirdly, we do quite a bit of research and development. Also because some of the solutions that we have to be building when it comes to preserving and providing access to collections is something that's very specific. So we need to collaborate with other archives across the world to make those innovations. So some typical objects from audiovisual archives. So what you see on the left-hand side is this enormous variety of different formats we have to look after. It's really incredible because you have to imagine that every physical piece needs its own machine to work. So we also have to collect the machines itself and make them also still running. And on the right-hand side, that's, you can say, the archive as it is today. This is a storage picture from our storage tape robot in Hilversum. And then also so next to the analog material, we also look after a lot of born digital material. So ranging from YouTube websites, etc., etc. So you can imagine that looking after all these very complex data, like interactive documentary, it's very complex. If for instance, it can be a website, so you have to also preserve the website, and then video can be in a certain format. And none of these formats are actually made with archiving, up front. So we have to sort of make sense of what is thrown our way, and it's an interesting challenge. But so today I'm going to talk about some of the changes that I see around me when I look at the cultural heritage domain. The examples I'm showing are from sound and vision. I think that's the easiest because I know a lot about those examples. But I'm pretty sure that over the past couple of days you also were discussing examples of, say, innovations or new ways that audiovisual or more broadly heritage collections are being made available. So there are many change drivers. So there's also so this is just one. If you look at, I like the fact that millennial, it's a guy with a man bun. I think that's really hilarious. It's like, okay, the millennial. But anyway, so when you look at what I'm showing this picture because you see that across the different media, there's changes even between Gen Z and millennials. Like the millennials are the younger Gen Z. So you see already that Gen Z is reading less newspapers and is much more engaged in online TV streaming compared to the millennials, who are still also, if you look at broadcast television, 35%, that's not a lot if you compare it to, say, older generations. I'm just saying that in order for heritage organizations to stay relevant, we have to make sure that we look at the next generation and how they are consuming media and make ways in which we are part of their, I would say, information flow, fun flow. We have to, we can't say, oh, this is how we think that you should be consuming heritage. No, we have to see what are our customers, who are, our users, what do they want? But this is just one change driver. There's also a lot of debate about, say, the lack of diversity in archival collections and the fact that it's very biased. There's like endless debates about cultural heritage organization and what they should be doing. So, so this is basically the core of my talk. So I think there are at least 3 changing roles. So historically, this idea of knowledge gatekeepers, the fact that there are curators working in a museum or documentalists working in an archive, and they are solely responsible to make descriptions of a film, or they are responsible to curate an exhibit. I think in the future this will be much more opened up. Secondly, providing access to a select few. So the fact that you have to travel to a physical museum in order to, say, read a book or watch a film, that is completely going away. So this idea of providing access to everyone, that's also, I think, a big shift. Not something that just happened like this year. This was, it has been going on for a couple of decades. But now you see how technology can actually make this much more, say, interesting from a user point of view. This idea of creating knowledge, say, there's a lot of, say, information in archives that can be, say, translated to something useful by applying technology. I will show an example of each of these four, so it will become clear as we go along. And then cultural heritage organizations as, say, buying technology, and I think now more and more we also see that cultural heritage organizations are co-creating technology. So, and I have one animation in this slide deck, and it's coming up right now. So, you know, are you ready? Isn't it? So, I checked with María yesterday, and there I see that there are lots of posted sticky notes. So don't be afraid. I'm not going to, you know, ask you to come up and do something super sort of engaging, because it's Thursday afternoon and there's still, you know, one lecture to go, and you know, there's wine, and etc. etc. But I would like you to pick a sticky note, and as I discuss the different examples, think a little bit about what other changes that you see. So I will be presenting 4. But I think it's nice if you know, maybe over the past couple of days also thought about, you know, what is new. If you look at the museum experience or the archival experience now and a couple of years ago. And I think, you know, we don't really have time to wrap it up, so I'm thinking just use a flip over, and before we leave, just stick it on the flip. And then tomorrow morning when we come in, we can take a little bit of a look and say, you know, what are the ones that are missing. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, brilliant. Okay, Maya, how am I doing on time? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so first, community enablers. And the example that I'm going to mention here is Project Revive. And so this is a project that we've been doing for 5 years now, where we invite producers of music to come over to the archive and get inspired by our collection, and also meet with topical experts. For instance, we did one residency where producers were visiting professors in water management and were listening to our collection related to water sounds. And then they created a new album based on that. So it's very, let's say, experimental music. It's not easy to dance to, but it goes to different festivals, like the WeWire Festival and others. And let me just show what these are a few people that are actually, you know, DJs, producers that are looking through our collection. Oh, let's go back.
Welkom bij From the Archive. Ik ben gevraagd om een show uit te zoeken.
Right now I'm just looking through all these 7-inch singles.
Ik weet sowieso dat ik hier tijd tekort heb, dat je het nooit kan ontdekken.
Ik heb een kratje weten te vullen al.
Tropical Gangsters. I like the sound of that.
Ik leg de naald erop en eigenlijk zijn dit wel de soort dingen die ik denk te zoeken.
Ja, dit is gewoon, sorry, als ik dit hoor word ik echt helemaal knettergek gewoon.
Yeah, it's cool. I think I'll put this one aside.
Ja, vaak schiet je mis, maar een aantal keren schiet je ook echt heel erg goed raak.
Het begint al, geloof ik, met zo'n 20.000 kilo vinyl.
Daarom probeer ik ook zoveel mogelijk gewoon er langs te gaan in plaats van alles eruit te trekken, want dat scheelt gewoon tijd.
You have to have a bit of patience, I guess.
Yeah, so this is really cool because actually these are the vaults where we keep our record collection. And so DJ is digging through the crates. So this is this is Red Light Radio that actually has a special say segment that uses archival material. And this is the radio studio that we had for some time. And this is an example of producers. Lecker, they are based in Berlin. And they were the first ones to create an actual album. This is the actual physical album that we created, and over the past couple of years, I think we made 7 different albums. And then, you know, the producers are touring with that album, also showing material from our collection. So it's very nice. And also, this is not exclusive to the Netherlands. We also collaborate with the Lithuanian Audiovisual Archive and also with the Polish Audiovisual Archive. So this is quite a nice model. So community engagement, inviting, say, makers over, you know, give them VIP access, making new material, and our archive gets presented to a new audience. That's super cool. Oh, and we also do, this gentleman is part of a workshop that we do in working with Ableton. That's the software package that producers use, and this is in the Nature History Museum in Berlin. So we did a session there. It's quite a cool photo. I tried to squeeze it in every chance I have. Okay, second, making collections accessible to everyone. So I know that most of you are living in Europe, so I think the obvious example of this would be Europeana, because Europeana brings together distributed collections. It makes them, it enriches the metadata, so you can actually search through all the metadata also in different languages. So I needed to sort of mention Europeana, but I'm going to be actually talking about another project, namely the VPRO backlight project that we're doing at the moment. VPRO backlight is a series that it touches upon, say, current topics and invites people to reflect on what the future of that topic could be. And this has been going for 19 years. So next year they are celebrating the 20th anniversary. And they contacted Sound of Vision, so the broadcaster contacted Sound of Vision, can you help find a way in order to make this collection available? So basically what we're doing is to look at the different episodes and try to make them available in a way where it actually can you can compare the different topics over time, because in this case, that's the best. I think the best way is just to show the interface. If you look at the archive of episodes, there are a number of topics that are recurring. Let's see. So these are the topics. So like economy, energy, money, geopolitics, health, identity. And we wanted to create a way in which you can look at how those topics were, say, covered over time. So basically what this interface allows you to do is to select topics and then so you see these different clusters, and this little button here allows you to not only look at, say, the separate clusters, but also to see a little bit about the correlation, because you can imagine that it's not very binary. Sometimes episodes also touch on other topics. Does that make sense? Okay, you're brilliant, brilliant. And that's quite interesting. Let's see where this goes. It's the same, no? Oh no, this is a different one. Yeah, no, it's the same. Okay. Going to the next. Yeah. So this is a screenshot of two clusters. So it's migration and religion. And you see that these two episodes are connected. So looking at the metadata, this system thinks, oh, these are connected. And indeed, if you look at the description of these topics, then you can see that these are indeed connected. And this is quite an interesting way to browse through an archive, because you start with a topic, and then you're exploring the collection, a 12-year collection, and then also see where there are, say, connections between items. But we also go a bit further, because you can zoom out, what we just did, but you can also zoom in. So looking at a single episode. And this is where we use a lot of the artificial intelligence, facial recognition, object recognition, speech recognition, all that kind of thing. So let's, next video. So what you can do, so for 1 year, so you can also present it on a timeline. So for 1 year, you can say this is one episode, and within the episode, so what you're seeing here is now all the different scenes that comprise one single episode, and you can search. So in this example, we search for Trump, and then the face recognition recognizes Trump. this is quite interesting, this example, because this was a deep fake of Donald Trump, but our system still recognizes it. So I'm just showing this example because it's, zooms out and zooms in, and that's very significant. It's a totally different way in looking at archives as the sort of the classic search box as we have been looking at archives in the past. Yes, and we are going to blow this up in an installation to be opened in Rotterdam next year, where you actually can look at how different AI systems look at the same data. Because you can imagine that AI systems make mistakes, because depending on the data that they are trained with. So in this installation, we are showing how different algorithms show different results, to have a debate about, okay, what does AI say, do to cultural heritage in a way. Okay, so the third, helping others to construct, deconstruct. The example here I took is anchored in journalism and media studies. So this is basically Sound of Vision as an archive working together with those groups. And it's about the 2021 general election in the Netherlands. So what journalists wanted to find out is to sort of debunk this idea that, or I don't know what, but like check the idea that there's a general assumption that public media is left-leaning and progressive. So how do you sort of check if this assumption is actually true? How can we look at data and determine if this is fact or fiction? So we looked at broadcasts leading up to the election. So it's 1,200 broadcasts. So also here we are using artificial intelligence. So first we looked at, this is the natural language processing, trying to detect who is mentioned in the data. So looking at the transcripts using speech to text, and then we are looking at which of the politicians are being mentioned. So that's interesting. So you can, you count the amount of mentions, but it's only there are obvious errors in the speech to text, so that's something we have to manage. And also there is some ambiguity in the wording. But still, this is quite an interesting way to look at the data. Second, we are able to recognize over 200 politicians. So basically, system recognizes faces. And that's interesting because then you can also see if that person speaks. So if you look at both the results of our work, we can see that some results are expected in the sense that there are more men in parliament than women at the moment. Boo! But then you see this also in the data, and also that the governing coalition spoke the most, and that's also kind of obvious because as they are. We have a pandemic, so they are in the news constantly. So then it's quite difficult for the opposition to also have to enter the media space. So this is sort of what we expected. And so this clustering here is to see that who from which political party is actually talking, and also not very unexpected. The party leaders are mentioned. They are in the news quite a bit, although there are some notable sort of outliers, like Hugo de Jonge is our Minister of Health, so he's in the news quite a bit, as you can imagine. But so some results that were surprising. Women speaking longer than men on average. And also that right-wing politicians were mentioned in the media more often. So this is just looking at the data, these were our findings. And this is quite interesting because with this, we could say that this idea of public media is super left-wing and let's say progressive. That's not really the case. It's actually the center and right-wing is in the news quite a lot. So for us, this was interesting because the first time that we could actually show the results, so together with journalists. And so obviously we were very happy that it also reached the mainstream news, NOS, which is the biggest news broadcaster in the Netherlands. And again, so this could not have happened without collaborating between researchers and archives. Fourth, co-designers of innovation. So, we are working with a design agency, and I make it sound like it's an agency. It's like two young artists working together. Superposition, they're called. And they are super interested in working with the archive to see which kind of artistic interventions we can make with them. And they came up with this idea of artifacts of memory. How can we find a way to present archives and connect it in the city? I will show you some videos to point out what it is that we're doing. But it is quite interesting because we started this collaboration with them in order to sort of think a little bit about what AI could do, but not in a very practical sense as I showed earlier, that we say, oh, let's look at data and let's do this and this. This was more like, let's see what the technology can do, and working with artists is interesting because they look at the world in a different way. So it's super nice for us to have this room to experiment. So this is where we started. So to use movement as a query. And let's see. Yeah. And this is also interesting because this is actually connecting two different collections of the Groningen archive and of Sound and Vision, just by, again, just a motion. So, and it's a super nice sort of random way to appreciate our collection. But also we wanted it to be sort of in an application so that it was, easy for people to just play around with it. And let's see. So this is Robin, who is working for the agency. And what you see here is, maybe you can pause for a bit. So we analyzed a few hundred hours of archival material, but in those few hundred hours there are thousands and thousands of different shots. So what you see here is the system looking at different lines, and basically lines in all those different shots. Yeah, thanks. So using gesture and movement, he actually found a completely new way to explore a collection. I think the next video is what the application is going to look like, kind of. This is still work in progress. Yeah. So what's happening is the camera is looking at the surroundings and then looking at matching videos in our archive. And some of the results are quite funny. So imagine walking through Rotterdam, and then all of a sudden you see this piece of in our archive. And in the app, you can take a shot. You can snap a screenshot and send it, and that kind of thing. So it's really nice. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah. So this is the end of my talk. So when I was wrapping up, I found out that all the examples that I brought with me had circles. So this is the final slide, very nicely designed with all the circles. So community enablers helping others create and deconstruct knowledge, heritage accessible to everyone. and see each other as co-designers of innovation, and all the things that you will be sharing with us, you know, as, hopefully, all the things that have been changing over the past couple of years that you noticed, and you think that you know, technology could help out. So with this, I think that's it. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Johan. I think we'll now give the floor to Daniel, and we'll get to the questions afterwards. So we'll have a quick chat, and also we're super eager to hear from you. I think just a tiny comment from my end. What I like a lot about the examples that you shared is that they are all a result of a very specific collaboration with different partners. So that this is not really the archive being in charge of the whole process, but basically it's a solid collaboration. It's about making decisions, selecting the right partners to get involved, to be involved, and then a co-working experience, so to say.
Yeah, and getting money to do it.
This goes without saying. Yeah, we need the resources. We've been there today. So yeah. So thank you very much. Can we have another round of applause for this gentleman? Okay, thank you. So yeah. So, Daniel, please take us to Spain.
Yeah? Yeah. Well, I am come here to talk to you about the Smart Heritage City. And the first thing that the people come to their brains when they say that title is, well, it's a smart city, and it is heritage. What the hell is that? It's not a useful mixture. I think that it's not usual, and it is true. And it is true, but we, or at least me, we come from an institution, a non-profit organization, that is called Fundación Santa María la Real, that we started 50 years ago in that place. That is an old monastery that was abandoned 2 centuries ago, more or less. And more or less 50 years ago, we decided to restore it. The other option was to demolish and also start a new life. But we decided that if we put that into the future, restoring them, we will make a better territory, a better people living, and also other things. And we use technology for that. Well, I don't know what I am doing. It's the middle one? Okay. Now is that. It is totally recovered. There is a museum, there is a school, and also there is a innovation research center inside of the building. So now the territory is changing. And it's so important for us because the project Smart Heritage City is part of that evolution. We started restoring 1 building. After that, we restored 64 churches around that territory. And after that, we started to monitoring because the people that take care of that churches were run away to Madrid or to other places that they can have a better life. So we decided to do the same with a Smart Heritage City. But what happens usually in a smart city is that they are focused on to be knowing what happened with waste, with all the resources, with the mobility, transport, energy, with the environmental fact, and also with the economy. It's so important for the smart cities to understand where is the money and how to improve that. But we decided that the most important layer was that, the heritage. And it is because if in all the cities, the monuments are different. And also, they form the identity of that place. So at the end, that must be the core of the project, not all the other parts. Of course, they are also important, but they are focused on to be more sustainable and also to make better cities, but not to let the next generations our heritage. So we decided to do that. And how would we do that? Well, we are the Fundación Santa María, and I told you a little bit of our story, but we formed a consortium that was focused on technology. We were focused on heritage and also a little bit in technology, and the others were centers of innovation and also universities. And the most important of all of them, a municipality that is an UNESCO protected site. That was unusual. We asked a lot of cities, and most of them don't want to get involved in that project because they have to spend resources, people, and they don't feel that they have time to do that, and also they don't see what is going to happen. Well, at the end, we found the perfect partner, Avila. And it was the perfect because he involved all their resources, the policy, the firemen, all the heritage people, and it was super great. But at the end, we have to use technology to produce a project. How to do that? Well, it's quite simple. It's like other projects. We have a cloud, and in that cloud, we put all the knowledge, we put the data, and we put all the expertise, and we want to know how to manage it. These are all the sensors that we installed, and they are focused on 4 main areas. Where is moving people, the heritage conservation, the efficiency of the energy, but it's also only related with the walls that are illuminated with a vast system, and also the security. That going back, we installed 200 sensors that were important because they provide data, but the important thing was not the data, was the knowledge. We decided that the important thing here was to provide tools for the managers. How we do that? First of all, knowing the city flows inside the walls. The walls have 5 doors. We put some cameras counting people, and also we divide all the center city into 5 areas. And we know where people were moving. And also inside the buildings, we have that information. So at the end, the people that is managing the city could know where is the people and also what are the most visited things, at what time, and what they have to do if there is any trouble. With the conservative preservation, it was the same. We have selected 10 buildings, and we installed sensor of temperature, humidity, luminosity, a lot of sensors. But we don't want to know the data. It's not important thing to see hundreds of numbers. We decided that we only want to know which is the state of the building, and if it is well conserved or it needs some action. For the energy, it's the same. We only wanted to know what happened with the walls, with the illumination of the wall. And also, it must be, of course, efficiency, but also it will preserve the walls because the older system was burning the stones. It seems stupid, but if you count all the number of hours that it has been used, that system, you understand that it was a high risk to decide to use it. At the end, we installed some security to look for what is happening in that area. That was an archaeological area that is close to the river, that is super fancy, but the people goes to drink there. And also sometimes they get into that archaeological site, destroying it or removing some pieces. So we use that for putting known what is happening in that place. At the end, all the buildings were monitoring, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is that the managers could decide how manage their heritage. And also for the tourists, because with all that data, we can offer or we can share which are the best experience for them and which are the places that they have to visit or the time that they have to wait. At the end, it is useful for the tourists to understand a part of that data. And of course, for the managers. We have to face a polyhedric problem. It was a municipality or administrative problem because there are not a lot of entities that want to apply it. We have technology problems, but we will solve because we have previous expertise, and also another one that is the replicability, because once you have done one, it's easy to replicate, but at the end you have to do on at least one. And that was one of the objectives of the project. And it was, at first time, it was a failure because nobody wants to do it, but now we are replicating that project in Cartagena, Indias in Colombia. And now we are introducing improvements. For example, we are going to monitoring vessels to understand what to do in the next years with that vessels that are sinking. And also, for the impact, it's important the replicability because this project was also, as María said, it was awarded and in Ilucidare and also for the Interreg Sudoe program. Well, now we are facing, as I say, with the replicability of Cartagena de Indias, and now the different technology is being added to that project. But the important thing here is not the technology, is that if you have an idea, you can transform it with the help of the technology. And that's what I want to share with you. Thank you, that's all.
Okay, now it's working. Thank you very much, Daniel. Can I invite you both back on the stage? So we're going to grab some chairs. We're going to sit here and chat. So, yeah. So, do we have the second microphone? Yeah, it's there. Okay, we need to use it for the recording. So, thank you very much, both. What I gathered from both of your presentations, so I already shared the comment about Johan's experience and the examples that you shared, that it's mostly about, maybe not mostly, but the key thing, the key element in all of these projects, it's collaboration. And this is exactly the same thing that you said, Daniel. You even showed it, yeah, you gave the logos, etc., etc. How do you make it happen? How do you make it work? How do you set up these collaborations? How do you choose the partners? Yeah, I think we want to get here as practical as we can, just to inspire and to share with to give tips. So that would be the question, the first one. Want to go first, Daniel?
Well, the Smart Heritage City is at the end of other projects. So we started the consortium with other projects. That was SH building, and we monitored only 3 buildings. It was a small project, and we make it grow. And we added a municipality of Avila at that time. But at the first project of SH building, we know each other. We stayed first with the 2 of that partners because we were related in other small project in Spain. And after that, they present us the other partners. So I know that it's pretty weird, but the initial projects that are smaller probably is going to produce bigger projects. And that's maybe if I have to give a tip, I say that when you have an idea, try to do it, even if it is small, and try to find someone that is around you to help you. And after that, you probably grow.
Yeah, absolutely. That's start small is a very good tip. I would say, reaching out to the people where you think, there could be an interesting collaboration. Like the first example with the music producers, they weren't really thinking that an archive would, open their doors for a residency. That was outrageous. But then, if you have one or two good examples and promote them, then it's the next collaboration will be easier. And so, second tip. Third tip would be hire the side of the people that you hire in an organization. I see that changing now in my organization. Young people tend to. So, for instance, the work that we do with artists, we now also have graduates from art schools working for us. So that's a very natural way because they have to share the same language, etc. So those would be my 2 tips.
Okay, so to pick up on this, how do you, because as you said, you also need to work with your organization, your institution, and kind of convince your colleagues that it's the collaboration that the new partnerships bring in, they are valuable. Yes, so it's also about, I think it was somewhere in your slides, Johan, that that was actually the core message, that we are changing as a sector, yes, and we need to find the new roles and change the way of thinking. And from my perspective, it's also about, from the archival sector, it's changing from the custodian, the person that knows it best, into an enabler, as you said. So how do you make this switch within your own organization? Hiring new people with new set of expertise, that is one thing. But how do you then persuade the ones that are already on board?
Well, we don't start hiring people. We decided to make a new department focuses on get money from some innovative ideas, and also to sharing and to looking for partners. That was the first part. Not hiring people, or just making a new department of people that have been working in some projects, and also after that, we started hiring people.
So we spent 2 hours in the bus today from the airport to here. So we had lots of time to converse. One of the things that we talk about is that there is one thing that's like the mission of your organization that is sort of anchored. In many cases, I don't know about your organizations yet, but so Sound and Vision, we are in the Dutch media law. So basically, the government has dictated. Well, let's just say dictated. It's telling us what our mission is, and we have to do that. So the minute that we are, and in our case, it is looking after Dutch public broadcasting. There are many ways to do that. So in our case, we said, okay, we want also to show the audience the story about media. It's sort of nicely aligned to that mission. But that means that we also have to collect commercial broadcasting. But that also meant that now we are having discussions with the Ministry of Culture, like, okay, so but why are you also collecting commercial broadcasting? Why are you collecting games? And then we have to explain to the government that this is also our partners that actually really need say an entity as Sound and Vision to look after collections, so that then they can do more. Like if we look after heritage, then publishers in the educational sector can make lesson programs. So then there is an economic benefit there as well, next to sort of a societal impact thingy. But this is an ongoing conversation with our funders. So how to interpret the mission of an organization to the people that are, say, funding you, that's very important as well. And then tip, make sure that you're not the one that is saying how brilliant you are, but then you have, the people that you are super serving telling you that, you're doing something interesting, like the media scholars that can now do research in, politics and the media that they couldn't do earlier. It's a bit of a long answer, sorry.
That was good. So that was the value, and now the challenges. So this is heritage and technology. We also started with that. Okay, does it really make sense? You showed it does, and you showed that this is the way forward. Maybe not the only one. It's not always about putting technology everywhere, etc. But I think Is it possible to avoid it? Yeah, so not really. But what are the challenges here when you want to set up a collaboration like that, when you want to have the technology integrated in your work, in an archive, in the city, but dealing still with heritage? What would be your, I don't know, top 3, but doesn't have to be like that. Johan, go first.
You're lucky you can think a bit longer. So I would say speed is a factor. So expectations that can an organization go as fast as the people that you're working with? Say, oh, we have this great idea and to do this on a festival in 2 months. Oh my goodness, can we make this happen? So that's definitely a challenge. Tomorrow there's a wonderful session about copyright. That's also a session, a challenge, because there's a lot of heritage available, but what can we share openly and under which conditions? You wanted 3, right?
Yeah, and if we could focus on technology also. This is how helpful this group is.
Well, then that is sustainability. If you, how can you scale from a project to something that is actually going to be around for a long time? And sort of the investments that you make, is it something that you can maintain in-house, or is it something where you actually need to have a contract with a third-party vendor? And that's very challenging.
Okay, Daniel.
Well, for a smart city, it was challenging to find a partner that want to spend time in that, because usually it's thinking that it's going to be a waste of time and it's going to be less useful than it is. That was the first. And the second one that I think that is a challenge is to transform that project into process, into something that you can sell, and also that it can transform into benefit.
Thank you both. I have more questions, but I would like to give the floor to you. Are there any questions from the room? Do you have questions maybe specific to the projects, or? Yeah, I will help. Yeah. So Katarina, you first, and then.
I have a general question. I'm always wondering how we can keep the heritage and technology always updated, because technology evolves, at least nowadays, in crazy pace. So something that we do today, maybe after like 2 years, is completely outdated. So how do your organization, which is an archive, and maybe your project, deals with this challenge? How to get to be always updated?
Yeah, so it's a bit of links a bit to the challenges that we just outlined. So in the case of heritage organizations, there is this very fundamental layer that is about collection management, that looks at, say, storage, that looks at the catalog, that links then to the storage. And I think by far this is where most of the investment goes, because operating a state-of-the-art archive is very costly. And sort of we came to the conclusion that we have to decouple, say, this foundational layer with the interfaces, because interfaces, they tend to change way quicker, because user expectations change all the time. So that has to be very quick. So part of the answer to your question is in the architecture, making sure that the apps that you create or interfaces are more flexible than but can link to the foundation. We call this the slow speed and the fast speed development lane. That's a way to do it, but it's not easy. Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Well, from smart cities, as you say, it's true. All the sensors are changing. 1 year later, we decided that sensor, there were better sensors, more accuracy, and also more data than they provide. But at the end, the scheme was the same. And you have to be aware of what is changing, on what is uploading of the new systems, of the new products, but at the end, you have to use the same scheme. But it is useful. For example, we use thermal cameras to count people, to be under the GPDR, and we don't, well, tomorrow, as Johan said, it's going to be talk about that. And after that, in other project that we are developing now, we are using Mac sniffers that look for the Macs of the devices that have switched on the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi. So also we can count people without a camera. And it is much better. And also we know the nationality, the age, and more things that are so interesting for tourism. But you have to take your time to look what is happening in the market, of course.
Just like a little addition. Also, if you have to, if you buy software or if you commission software, make sure to be owner of the result of that software, and also always go for open technology wherever possible. Because then, you know, if an SME changes their contract on their side, then you can go to another company. That happens actually quite a lot. So make sure to be owner of the software that is developed.
I know that there is a question there, but I have Anna closer.
Yeah, I think that your project is very useful for preventive purposes. Because we know that many heritage is endangered by environmental disasters, so it can be used for rebuilding. For example, only this year we had an earthquake in Croatia, we had a tornado in Czech Republic. So many heritage objects have been endangered, just not like people-made, but nature-made. So such projects would be useful as preventive measures, as a usual business for local governments to have such data online, because otherwise, if the archives are lost, the physical ones, it's just difficult. Do you consider such add-ons to your projects for such purposes?
Well, for example, related with the floods, we try to manage that with the heritage and floods, putting sensors into the rivers, in the high part of the rivers, and when there is a risky situation of a lot of rain, that advise to the managers to put sand or some barriers to prevent that situation. But it is true that you have to design for each problem one different solution. And at the end, well, it could be useful to use our platform for that. But it is more focused on the day work of the regular work than that environmental exceptional happens. Well, yes, yeah, it's sure. And also, it's so related with, well, if you have a graph where you put the edges in the X and in the Y you put the damage, it is more or less like that. It's an Euclidean curve. And if you spend money, at that point of maintenance, it is cheaper. You only have to spend a little reparative. But if you wait a lot of time, you have to waste a lot of time, a lot of money. You have to spend it, and that could be so interesting to show why it is important to have that perspective of the conservative preservation.
Yes, thank you so much. I would like to know that what benefits people and inhabitants are receiving from your project directly, because it's mostly about management. And
for example, well, I'm going to give you two examples. There were one of the gates of Avila were a lot of problems because the trucks go through that and broke the stones because they don't figure that it was taller their truck. So what we did, we installed some lights that when the trucks go through a laser sensor, they activated the light, so it stopped the truck. At the end, it was a a sensor that is measuring, that is now no object crossing it, and after that you have a light that stops it. And also it is helpful for the police because it's always a photo of the infractor, so at the end you are saving money for that. You have protecting, and also you are, but you have to be connecting with the police also. And there is another issue that could be interesting. Well, people, citizens were not against the tourists, but it's sometimes afraid of it. And it is useful to show how many people is in a place and if it is correct or it's something that is risky for the heritage and also for themselves. And it's something that is sharing with the citizens, not also with the tourists.
Thank you.
So, Carlos.
I have well, thank you very much for the presentation. They were very exciting. I was wondering for Daniel, how has improved your technology the visitor experience of Avila, and if you have noticed any visitor increase after having applied the technology or different measures related to the technology applied in Avila?
Well, it's funny because the pandemic was there and it go some crazy with the tourists. But anyway, we have some data before of it. And it was pretty nice because the managers sometimes decided to close some heritage when they noticed that there were a lot of people around some parts. Because one of the problems of Avila and one of the reasons that they decided to get into that or get involved with that project is that they receive hundreds of tourists from Madrid that they come by bus, and in a moment you have 100 people more or less into your city. And you don't know what were the timetable or what is going to happen. And with that system, they can close some monuments and they can move people to other places. And that was helpful for that, because they can do that. They can do that action.
Okay, Inke.
Yes, I have a question for Daniel. What about privacy? And the other question is, you have a lot of data that you're collecting. Where do you keep it? Who's the owner?
Well, the owner, of course, is the municipality of Avila. That's no doubt. But we also store data for later studies of people that want to use it. But the most important thing is to accomplish the GPDR, of course, and in both technologies that I said before, the thermal cameras and also the Mac sniffer or Mac searchers are always under that coverage. There is another fact, and it is that in some cities, some smart cities, they are using data from the telecom companies. And that is so useful, it's so expensive also, but you can be at risk because they triangulate your position, and also it could be more dangerous. But the technology that we use is under the umbrella of the GPDR.
Okay, that was be my question actually about technology and the question about ethics and how you deal with that. So, Daniel, we have your perspective. Johan, what is yours when it comes to AI and all the I don't want to say danger, but the elements that it brings in. The question about privacy also is relevant, but the question about biases, the question about misinformation that can also accidentally come out of this.
Yes, that's a super big question. But just to unpack it a little bit, so much of the AI systems that I used are made by big tech companies, and so the training data that they use, it's can be very skewed. It can also be training data that we actually don't know what is in it. And so it's important to work on alternative systems, on more open systems where actually it is known which training data is used. Actually, where algorithms can be are not say black boxes, but can actually be looked at. So, for instance, the recommendation algorithms. There are in most of our platforms today, but this is why people get served certain adverts and some don't. But there is in many cases, if this is offered by big tech companies, this is impossible to sort of monitor or to look at. So we have to work to make alternatives to these solutions. So embracing open technology in the entire stack. So in many cases there are already open alternatives. So there's so for instance WhatsApp is owned by Instagram, but there's also something like Signal, which is a bit more privacy friendly, but also authentication. There are open standards and more. So the entire stack of technology that we use, there are already open alternatives. And I think it's up to public organizations, be it broadcasters, museums, to be the first to actually embrace this technology, because we have a very public mission. So it is. This is going to, the next 5 years will determine a lot about how the technology will be, directing us to look at culture, directing to whom we engage, etc. So there is now, I think, still in Europe at least, some sort of window where we can embrace open technology, including AI. But it's a bigger question than just AI.
Okay. Ooh. So let's start here.
Thank you very much for both your presentations. My question will be a bit more broad, so I don't expect a full answer. How could we use heritage-led technological innovation to create a more equal and inclusive and tolerant society? Thank you.
Yeah, so that's it actually ties in a bit with what I was just saying about this sort of public infrastructure, this idea of a commons, and sharing. I think also tomorrow when we talk copyright, we will also be talking about Creative Commons, using open, open software licensing. I think for me, it's all in the same sort of energy about empowering users and being less directed by the big tech. And a lot will be about very grassroots experiments. To me, to tinker with technology, and again, start with young people and start doing all kinds of hackathons and all kinds of engagements. From the ground up, I would say.
Well, from my experience, for example, I have to say that all the platform of Smart Heritage City is uploaded to the Commission, and also it's an open source. So I think that's could be the key, to use that projects to explore, and also if you find that it's one of the or a good solution, at least that it is an open source and reuse also. And
is that a bit okay answer? I can imagine. So it may be a little bit vague. So let me give you an example of where I think that. So Wikipedia, that's a sort of ecosystem where I think of when I look at sort of alternative and grassroots a project where the media that's on there. There's a little bit of moving image material, lots of pictures, lots of paintings, lots of culture to be found on Wikipedia. So lots of enthusiasm by volunteers, so this idea of heritage organizations working with Wikipedia community, those are the kind of things that I think will be beneficial. What do you think?
It's a starting point for. Thank you. It's definitely a good starting point for the wine tasting.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, we are not there yet. Archie?
Thank you, both of you, for your presentations. But I just wanted to ask, do you think that there's ever, or perhaps you've got experiences you could share, but do you think there's ever a danger with these database solutions of bringing in things which maybe don't work or aren't ultimately necessary? Do you think you can ever over-engineer these things and actually there were systems in place which worked beforehand?
So can you explain the last your last comment? There was a system in place that worked. What do you mean with that?
Well, do you think there's ever a temptation to bring in automatic systems of monitoring or AI or things like that when actually there were systems in place that were fine? And
Yeah. Do you want to say a few words?
Well, it's a good question. You have, it depends on the necessity that you want to explore, first of all. And the second, it depends on what happened to that municipality. For example, in Avila, what happened is that they don't know how to manage that tourism. And for that reason, it was a good project, because they don't have any answer and they don't have worked before with that problem, because they don't have enough people visiting them to have any problem. But when they started to receive 100 people every day without know what happened, that was a good example. But of course, you have to deal with, or you have to face with the problem of the technology that is changed. But you have to find a middle point on where you have a good algorithm or a black box, as I said before, that can work with data, and it doesn't matter if there is a new data. If with that data you have an answer, you can keep it, that formula on, and probably you will help. Anyway, if there is new problems, you have to face it. And also you probably with that platform or with other solution, you could do it better than if you don't have anything.
So, yeah, I would say you're absolutely right. People are sometimes using technology where they shouldn't. You know, I've been, I don't know how many hours I spent on Miro boards over the last, I don't know, do you know what that is? They're like Miro boards or jam boards, all kinds of sort of online. And when I see this, it's like, you know, just pen and paper, sticky notes. That's way low tech, and to me, that's it not only does the job, it does it way better. But there's a tendency that people just, you know, look at technology and try to do something with it because they can. So absolutely, yeah. That's also María yesterday. WhatsApp me saying, make sure to talk about tech. Yeah. So, but the first example that I showed wasn't about tech. It was people playing around with analog records. So. So no, a very good comment. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I think we're keen to get to the to the vineyard. It's not a very burning question, but I raised my hand, so I will ask it. I think it's quite specific for Daniel. I wanted to ask if you have any collaborations with academia for research purposes, because to build a bit on Anna's question, the technology you're developing has a potential to really make bridges between, for example, heritage and climate change, which is a very pressing issue. So, for example, like to demonstrate the long-term impact on climate change on heritage, or how energy efficient heritage is. So that could really make a case for heritage conservation. And so, yeah, and academia could be a way to, to develop that research.
Yeah, for sure. We have made some studies about that. We compare 20 churches and what happened in the last 10 years. That's the time that we have been monitoring churches and all the all other monuments. And it's so related with the climate change, for example. But the fact is that when you have data, you can have an analysis that is usually provided with that students. And after that, you can have some action, because you have the data and also you have the analysis. And it is so useful for that.
Okay, we have room for one final question. Anyone? I haven't. Okay, then if not, then it's time to wrap up slowly. So it will be me trying. But what I take from this discussion is that in the end, it is always about, again, bringing the right set of people to the table and then being open to something new and to new opportunity, being aware of the challenges it may bring. And it's also about pushing for something new, pushing for innovation, but being also very much aware that it doesn't always have to be linked to or led by technology. This is what Johan said, that yes, innovation, I think the first idea that we have is always about bringing tech in, hence my comment from yesterday. But in the end, it is really about your choices. It is really about making the right decisions and choosing the set of partners and the tools that you want to use and the formats that you want to bring on in order to create something really amazing, in order to make it work, in order to make it useful for the community that you're willing to work with or that you want to approach. And I think this is the biggest value of having the technology or basically any kind of innovation in the picture. For the past week, we've been talking about the PASL model, so the political innovation, economy, etc. They are not like independent areas. It is all connected. So technology is just yet one another part and yet another element of the puzzle that you need to take into account. It is super exciting. You need an extra set of skills to be able to talk this language, to speak the language, and to be able to enter into the dialogue with the partners that you want to have. But this is, I think, it makes it even more exciting. So I think that was it. Thank you very much, gentlemen. May I ask you for a round of applause? Thank you very much for joining us. This is it for today.